Hello class, and welcome to your last video for the semester. This video will show you how to complete the review for the final, and this is posted on Blackboard. If you go to our Blackboard site and click on the final review button, which you should see available here at the bottom, there is an objective review which will contain questions that you will find on the final multiple choice exam, and then there's the hands-on review. So we're going to perform this hands-on review together. Let's start by looking at this final review Word document. If you click on that, and let's open it. Okay, so it says your software company is developing a piece of software for another company that designs and builds custom propane tanks. The program needs to calculate the volume and surface area of these propane tanks, missing the word "of" there, and save them as a record in a database. It currently has a circle class and a cylinder class, and remember we've done those. A main menu and a DB tanks header file. So here's what you need to do. Download and open the final review tank CPP file and the DB tanks header file from Blackboard. Create the sphere class that will be derived from the circle class. Create a constructor that receives the radius using the circle class. Create a get surface area method and a get volume method. Instantiate the sphere class underneath the cylinder class and do the calculations to find the total surface area and volume. Okay, so the first thing to note here, these propane tanks, envision them as a cylinder with two hemispheres on either side. So to find the volume of the tank, you would just need to add one sphere with the radius, the given radius, and then add that to the cylinder. And then same with the surface area. It's going to be the total surface area of one cylinder, of one cylinder, and add that to the two spheres, hemispheres on the end. So two hemispheres make up a single sphere. And then I want this you to save this into a text file, and that's what the save tank is for, that function. And then I also want you to write a function that will search through and find a tank. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a dev project, and then I'll just download these two files and add them to the project. So opening up a new dev file, new project, and I will call this last name first initial final review. And let's see, I think it's in my documents, C++ projects. Okay, and then I'll just create a new folder here. Call it final review. Okay, so here we have the final review project started. I'm going to go back to Blackboard, and I'm going to download this CPP file. I'm going to save it in that location. So documents, C++ projects, final review. And then same with DB tanks. Okay. I'm going to add those to this project. Right click, add to project, final review tanks, and then add to project again, DB tanks. Okay, and then the main CPP that it created when I created the project initially, I'm going to go ahead and remove that file. Okay, so let's take a look at these two files. So the final review tanks, let's just take a look at this project really fast. We've got the circle class, that should be familiar with to you, and the cylinder class, and just for simplicity's sake, I guess, I stuck them in the actual CPP file. If you wanted to migrate these out to their own header file, you could do that, but here they exist inside the main. And here's the main. Here I say create sphere class. That's where we're going to create our sphere class. Here's the main. I already have a menu created for you. Here's the make tank function, and this is where we're going to display the area of the circle, create an instance of the sphere class, do the calculations. Surface area of the tank is, the tank has a volume of, save the tank yes or no, and it calls save tank. And let's look at the DB tanks. We have a save tank function and a get tank function, so they're partially complete for you. I've already created the file out or output file stream instance, and I've opened the file and hard-coded tanks.txt there. And so then I want you to write the code that places that tank into the database, and then in the get tanks function, I want you to create the code here that searches through the file to try to find the tank, and it will display tank not on record if it can't find it, or it will actually display the tank. Now if you wanted to have this return a tank, you could do that, return that data in a vector, or you could even create a tank class to return that. But just out of interest of time, if you wanna, what we're gonna do is just display that value directly right here in this get tank function. Okay. So let's start by creating the sphere class right here, line 95 in the final review tank CPP file. Okay, so starting with the keyword class, sphere, and it is derived from public circle. Open, close, curly brace, and don't forget the semicolon at the end. Okay, let's glance at those instructions just to see everything that needs to be in this sphere class. Create a sphere class that will be derived from the circle class. Oops. And create a constructor that receives the radius using the circle class, and then create a get surface area method and a get volume method. Okay, so a sphere really doesn't need any of its own private variables. They can all be stored inside the circle class. All we need is a radius, right? You can create a sphere from a circle, and you don't need any more information. You just rotate it, rotate a circle into the third dimension around and its diameter. So I am going to create a default constructor here, and that will look like this: sphere and derived from circle constructor and receives no arguments. So that will call the circle default constructor, which will give the circle a a unit radius, I believe. Radius of 0 for the default circle constructor. And then the other circle constructor receives the radius, so that's what we're going to do here with the sphere. We are going to create that overloaded option. If the user knows the radius at the time that they instantiate the sphere, then we can go ahead and pass that radius there, double radius, pass it to the circle class. Okay. Alright, so next we need to create methods that will get the surface area and get the volume. Okay, so I'll create double get surface area. Let's call it get surf area. It's going to return a double. And I'm going to start by getting the area from the circle class. So double area equals get area. We can call that directly. It's part of the circle class. Since the sphere class is derived from the circle class, it has access to all of the same functions that the circle class has. And then the surface area formula for a circle is really simple. It's just 4 times the area. So I'm going to return 4 times area. Okay. And then the volume. There's a couple of different formulas for the volume of a sphere. One of them is 2/3 pi r squared h, which pi r squared h, if you remember, is going to give us the area of a cylinder. So the volume of a sphere is 2/3 the volume of a cylinder with the outer scribed or circumscribed cylinder. If you have a sphere that's inscribed inside of a cylinder, it's 2/3 the volume of that cylinder. Another one, without having to use the cylinder formula, you can use just the circle. It's 4/3 the area times the radius, or 4/3 pi r cubed. And so pi r squared is the area of a circle. So multiply the area times the radius. That gives you pi r cubed. 4/3 of that is the area of or volume of the sphere. So I'm going to use that one. Double get volume, and the area, once again, I'll get area. And now, do I have to do this in a separate line? No. Could I drop this get area, right here in the single line? Yeah, but I'm just separating it into different separate lines just for readability. Get radius, and then so I'm going to return 4/3. I'm just hard coding 4/3 in there using decimal point there. That way they are doubles, and it will give us the decimal portion of that double. 4/3 times area times radius. That will give us the volume. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of the sphere class. And there we have a class for the sphere. Alright, now we can use that in our main. Okay, actually the main calls get the make tank function. So down here in the make tank function, we have some work to do here. Okay, here I have this comment display circle area. We really don't need to do that. I'm just going to delete that. Let's say that software company, they just want to be able to type in the radius of the end caps of the propane tank. Okay. So here, I'm going to instantiate a sphere. And I already know the sphere's radius. It's the same radius of the cylinder. So sphere, SPH, let's do SPH there. So sphere radius, that creates the sphere, calling the constructor with that given radius. Okay, and then it says calculations here. So notice surface area and volume are doubles that were already created for us. So I'm going to make use of those. Surf area gets cylinder dot, and we call the function get surface area. Okay, and then I'm going to add that. The surface area, this is the surface area of the tank. It's going to be the surface area of the cylinder added to the surface area of the sphere. So sphere dot get surf area. Okay, and then the volume of the sphere, or I'm sorry, not the volume of the sphere, but the volume of the entire tank is going to be the volume of the cylinder. Cylinder get volume. Add that to sphere get volume. For some reason the sphere isn't showing up in our IntelliSense or the pop-up, but everything looks like it's fine. Compile it and make sure it works. Okay, and then it displays the information and then asks if you want to save it, and if you do, then it passes the tank ID, which it asks you for, so you can give it a name or whatever you want there for the tank ID, and then it passes the radius and the height. Okay. Let's test it at this point, and when we get to the save yes or no, we'll just say no. And I'm going to hit this compile all. Oh, well, that's why things didn't show up. I bet you saw that too, didn't you? Double area equals get surface area. Okay. Get area is a lowercase g. I guess all of these I used lowercase for the function names. That's kind of a C++ convention. So lowercase g's, and we can make these lowercase g's too if you want. We'll just have to make that change there. That way we're consistent. Okay, and what about the cylinder? Okay, so that should clear that up. Then down here, let's make those changes. Get this should be get surface area with the lowercase g, lowercase g. Let's compile that now. Oh yeah, the system pause. It exists in another library, whereas originally it didn't. I'm just going to delete that out. Okay, looks like it compiled fine. Let's run it. Alright, let's create a new tank. I'm going to give it a radius of 1 unit circle. Height of the cylinder, let's make it 2. Surface area of the tank, 31.4159 meters squared. Tank has a volume of 10.472 cubic meters. And if you wanted to, we could check that out. Here's the calculator. Pi r squared, if I take 3.14 and cube it, let's get a scientific calculator. Oh. Okay. Pi r cubed is just going to be 1, so pi times r cubed is just 3.14. That's going to be times 4/3, which is 4.186 repeating, and we're going to add that to, and in parentheses I'll do the volume of the cylinder, which is going to be pi r squared h. Again, r squared is just 1, so it's going to be 3.14 times the height, which is 2. 6.28, 10.46. And it rounded, and of course it didn't use 3.14. I believe we have a longer version of 3.14 in here, a longer version of pi. Yeah, 159 took it out to that many decimal places. So, all right, so far so good. We've got the sphere class working. We got the volume and the surface area. We created an instance of a sphere, and then we calculated the volume and surface area of that tank, which is the cylinder plus the sphere. Now all we have left to do is add this tank to the file. So save tank has already been created. We just need to go to it and update it. Also with save tank and get tank, yeah. So starting with the save tank. So all we really need to do here is we need to output to the file. So file out. We're going to output the ID, and then here it said comma delimited. So I'm just going to put a comma in between the ID and the radius, and another comma, and then the height, and an inline. Okay, that's it. So it's only storing, save tank is only storing one line of data every time, and it's just a single tank. Okay, and now let's just test that. So I'm going to compile all, or rebuild all, and then run. Remember, if you don't rebuild all, sometimes it doesn't recompile the header. A little glitchy thing in Dev 553. So I'm going to create a new tank. Let's do that same thing again. We're going to do 1 and 2. And save this tank, yes. Tank ID, let's say this is my house propane. Okay, notice I'm putting a space there. That caused the program to crash. Okay, so the problem is here I'm using a cin statement to read in the tank ID. If you want the user to be able to type in a multi-word identifier for the tank, then you would need to change this to a get line. Now, the only problem with changing this to a get line is we've got all these other cin statements that are just normal cin statements. So this program is intended, really as it's written right now, for the user to only type in a single identifier. So maybe two options we have. We can either just tell the user type in a single word identifier, or we can make the change. You know what? I think it would be better programming, honestly, to go ahead and change all of these to get lines. So why not? It's our last program. So we've had these up here as well that you have to think about. Our choice, that is an int. So that one we kind of have to leave as an int, but what we can do is we can put a get char right there. That will absorb the enter. Okay, that way everywhere here we can use get lines. So get line cin and then tank ID. And then, so really all we need to do here, save this tank, yes or no. There we can put another get char, that will absorb the enter there. And if they typed yes, then it'll ask them for the tank ID. Then we can use get line, and then we did make tank ID a string, yeah. So get line cin tank ID. Okay. Oh, get line has a lowercase l, doesn't it? Alright, one more time. Get new tank, 1, 2. Save this tank, yes. Tank ID. I'm going to call it house propane. Okay. We haven't written the retrieved portion, so at this point I just want to check and make sure the tank was saved. So I'm going to go to the location where this project is at, final review. There's the tank's text file, and I'm going to just open that. Edit with Notepad++. Okay, so notice the first one I threw up there, it already has a file in there, and well, actually it threw the house 1, 2 in there, but it didn't add the propane part, and that was what was getting absorbed in the main menu, and that's why it was flipping back and forth. So this time it actually read it in there just fine. Okay. All right. Continuing on then, we now need to program the function that will allow us to retrieve a tank. So here you see get tank function. This get tank function, that's this function in the header file. So we just need this thing to search through the file looking for that tank ID that we're passing it, and then once it finds it, then it will just display that tank. Okay. All right. So here inside this while loop, so notice here we're opening the tank first. This is in the get tank in the db tanks header file. If there's a problem opening, then we'll just tell them there's a problem opening the file. Otherwise, while the input stream or end of file, while the end of file marker is not true for the input file stream, then we've got this loop going. That's where we're going to do get line file in, and I'm going to dump it into record, and that record has been declared for us already right here, string record. And then once we get that record, right in this while loop, that's where I'm going to look for the appropriate tank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable, and I'll just create it right here. I'll call it int first comma. So I'm finding the location of the first comma, and I'm going to do that using my find function. Record find the first comma. Okay, and then if I want to get the record ID, so string record ID is going to be equal to record substring. So I'm getting the substring starting at the beginning, going up to the first comma, and that's the length. If you remember, substring, it receives where to start, the index where to start, and imagine the string being an array of characters. So the first character is in the 0 position in the array, and then this is the length, which would be the same as the location of that first comma. Okay. Alright, so then once we've extracted the record ID from our text file, then we need to check to see if record ID matches. So I'm going to do if record ID is equal to the tank ID, which is what we passed in here, what we're looking for. Then we need to parse out the rest of the information. So I'm going to create another int that I'm going to call second comma, set equal to record.find, starting and with the find function you can tell it also where to start. So here I'm telling it to find find a comma starting at first comma plus 1. So if you started at first comma, then it would just say, okay, found it, the first comma. So you'd start one after and then start looking for the next comma. That's how you do that there. Okay, once we find it, then we're just going to output that information. So I'm going to do output, well, actually, let's get the radius also first. Let's create the radius next. String radius, and I'm going to set it equal to record.substring, since we're using the substring function here. Radius substring, and here I'm going to start where first comma plus 1, and then the length is going to be second comma minus first comma minus 1. Okay, I forgot to hit record when I talked through the rest of this, but I'm running low on time here, so I'm just gonna show it to you here and talk about it. So the radius and the height we both got with these substrings. First comma starting at the first comma plus 1, going to second comma minus the first comma minus 1, and then height substring starting at second comma. And if you don't have that, if you don't have a second parameter in your substring function, it's just going to start at that index and then go to the end. So the height's the last thing in our record. That should do that. So then I just display the tank, cout record ID was found on record, inline, and then cout, and I used a tab character to tab radius and height over, and I display the radius and the height. And then I close that file in stream and then return. I've got that return statement in this if statement. If we found the record, we don't need this while loop to keep going and keep looking. We want the whole function to stop. So return will return out of this entire getTank function. And then lastly, down here at the bottom, this cout tank not on record, and then we close that file and return. Okay, so now let's compile and run it, and just test out the retrieve tank. Enter the tank ID. Let's do that house propane. House propane was found on record, radius 1, height 2. There we go. Okay, so your final exam will have a multiple choice portion, and I've got that multiple choice review for you here on Blackboard. Take that on your own time, and it should also display how many questions you got right. By the way, all of your previous tests, you can now go to your grades button, click on the score you got, click on the score again. It will show you the test, your answer, and the correct answer. So you can review all of your previous old tests. And then the multiple choice final will be using some of these exact questions. And then here, final review. The actual final hands-on will be much like this. I will have a already written program for you, and you will just have to add to it, and it will involve adding a class. So the main focus is what we've been doing here for the last 2 units. Create a class, create the public functions, and if necessary private functions, derived classes. So you'll have to flesh out a class, possibly derived, and then implement it. I will already have a working program, and you will implement it by using that class like we did here, and then maybe doing some multiplication, division, adding some information there, and then saving and storing as well that information to a file stream. So you'll have a header file that accesses your data that you'll have to manipulate in some way as well. So good luck on the final. I will open the final up on Thursday. That way you have a solid week or more to do it on Thursday of this week. So it's been a pleasure. Happy programming, and make sure you know yourself. Happy programming in the future, and good luck in all your future endeavors.